Whoa, okay. And here is the format to give you an idea of what to expect, right? So we will take a few moments for each of the panelists to briefly introduce themselves and tell a little bit about their background in the industry. And then I will kick off the conversation asking questions about the impact of COVID in the sector, the future of co-living, and the hybrid models, among others. Then the last part of our time today, we will open up the floor to give you an opportunity to ask specific questions that you've been thinking. And then we will end up with more break rooms for the one who arrived late, so you can also have the opportunity to introduce yourself and meet cool people, right? So great, let's start with the panel introduction. So perhaps with Anne, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Sure, thank you, Virginie. So I'm Anne, I'm based in Germany. I've done hospitality since 25 years, and I'm a founder of QANNIK Projects, which is a consultancy firm, and we operate in Europe, Middle East, and North Africa. But we also, have founded last year a collaborative firm, which is called NeuSpace, which looks at distressed properties, hotels, and how to repurpose that as part of the societal change we have. So looking at return on investment, the community, multi-generational living. Again, here co-live is one element of it, but we feel it all comes together, and a hotel is ordinarily or an organic space where people come together, feed into the community around it, and if a hotel breaks away or doesn't perform very well, it's detrimental. So if we are able to capture that with the changes we've seen with COVID, with the offices culture, with people wanting a different work-life balance, whatever that means, to really make it attractive to be in town in a space which possibly is reversible and it's only for a period of time. So that's kind of in a nutshell what I do as a social entrepreneur, as well as having my own business.
Wow, super interesting. And let's see, Patricia, would you like to follow?
Sure. Hi, everyone, to whomever I haven't met before in the breakout rooms. My name is Patricia. I work for Zoku. Most of you might know it. It already exists since 2016 in Amsterdam. And now 3 weeks ago, we opened Zoku Copenhagen, and 3 days ago we opened Zoku Vienna, where I'm the sales manager. So yeah, it's an exciting time for us to go from 1 to 3 within a few weeks only. And we're a hybrid hospitality product between, we always say we're in home office hybrid, and we offer hotels short stay and long stay, so people can stay with us for one night or for a year, whatever they prefer and whatever brings them to our cities. That's more or less me in a nutshell.
Very well, thank you so much. You must be very excited about the Vienna opening, and
I'm very tired, but it's going really well.
Yeah, you mentioned it. You mentioned it. 30%, you said, right?
Yeah, today it really picked up. It's a long weekend in Germany and Austria, and we can really feel it.
Exciting times. Then, Lyuba, would you like to follow?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Lyuba. I'm also from the hospitality industry. Run a hostel. It's called Soul Kitchen. It's in St. Petersburg, Russia. And we won a lot of international hostel awards, like best hostel in Russia and also best hostel in Europe. And several times we were even best medium hostel worldwide. After the pandemic, we have reopened together with our partners Smena Station, which is also a co-living company. We launched it as a co-living last year. This year, we operated more like a hybrid. So it's an interesting journey for us. We're learning a lot. We've been pretty good as hostel operators, but now it's again a lot to learn, and it's really interesting how you can combine those two things. So I'm here happy to share my experience about that.
Thank you for that, Lyuba. We look forward to hearing your experience. And last but not least, Virginie.
Thank you, Virginia. So I'm Virginie, the Virginie team. So I'm the CEO of Co-Liv, and I have a background in luxury, so nothing to see with real estate. Co-Liv is a brand new, huge community based in France of more than 60,000 co-livers and owners and landlords of co-living everywhere in France, in the campaign and in the cities. The average age on Co-Liv is 38 years old, and we are a trusted third party, and we are the only trusted third party on this co-living part. And we try to reduce vacancy and to secure the link between the owner and the tenant around all this co-living part, which is very full of regulation in France. And we are in fact a broker in insurance, and we secure also all the legal part between the two parties.
Thank you.
Very happy to learn more later.
Merci. And so perhaps we can start with you. First thing first. So what does co-living mean to you guys, and how do you define community? We can start, if you wish, since you were the last. Would you like to start with?
Okay. Well, so, co-living is really the social link and mixity around people, and it's kind of freedom. It's kind of it's around services also, and something easy to check in, easy to check out. And what is very important, and on Co-Liv, and we say it every time, is when people want to live together, they need to choose themselves. When people choose themselves, they're happy with their choice. That's the point we focus on. And it is also a good investment on co-living is also for me a good investment in profitability in real estate for many reasons, and also a good investment to secure your asset in long term.
And how would you define community? Why is community so important for co-living, Virginie?
I don't know what you mean behind this question. How you would define community? I mean, it's people that.
What is community? What is community for you?
On Co-Liv, we see it's people that meet for. They share some values. They share values, whatever the values. They share some values that they want to that make them meet and feel. They feel they have a strong link together. But it's very. Different from one people to one other, but at the end, they finish by choosing them around this kind of affinity.
So people, community people who share something in common, perhaps common values, and
yes. And what we see on Co-Liv, there is no age. It's not a question of age. It's not a question of female or male. It's not a question of religion. It's really a question of interest and of value.
Exactly.
Yes.
So let's hear from Lyuba, perhaps, and then Patricia will follow. You can unmute yourself if you wish, Lyuba.
Sorry. Yeah, so the same question, yeah?
Yeah, please.
All right. So, well, for me, about the community, it all comes from the
so first,
from the problem of.
First, sorry for interrupting. Perhaps first, what does co-living mean to you, and then we'll define community, please.
Okay, yeah. So, well, for us, it's been a different way of how we describe ourselves because of the communal apartments in Russia, which in the USSR been really popular, and it's still very much in the Russian people's mind, like, it's a communal apartment. But the difference between communal apartment and co-living, because in co-living, people deliberately choose to live together, and they're also being chosen by, as previously said, that same lifestyle. So that is the essence of it, that they chose to stay together, they like staying together, and they like to be social, they like to be open. And also what we also explain a lot to our residents who wants to become a resident, that they want to share, they're willing to share, and also they're willing to learn. So that they can get something from the community, and they can also give something to the community, so that the community has this, kind of real magic going on. For the community, I think it's really important, this, especially now in the pandemic, this feeling of loneliness. And this is what co-living solves a lot. And even without that, it's in a lot of people who don't live in a big families, they want to be a part of something. They want to be a part of something bigger. And the community, whether it's a co-living community or some other community, this is exactly what is the biggest value of it, having this feeling that you're part of something bigger, that you can you can have some support. You can also share with the community.
Exactly. I think I completely agree with you, right? It's the feeling of belonging, right? And belonging to something, and yeah. So how about Patricia?
Sorry. So first, co-living, right? So for us, I mean, here at Zoku, for us, it's really because we come from a very hospitality product mindset, right? So we are really trying to expand that a bit and expand that definition of a traditional hotel. And we're trying to make guests realize what traveling could be, and how they actually can not only stay at Zoku for a few nights, but can actually really stay for weeks or months even, and are also kind of rethinking of how they travel, and also push that a bit in terms of also how the companies see business travel, for example. And yeah, so we really think that, especially what also Lyuba was saying with the loneliness, so we also see it a kind of a fight for us to fight, that we want to reduce loneliness when people travel for business for a long amount of time, also just go to different cities here and there, and also always come back to the same cities. So when they stay at Zoku, and this is where the community comes in, right? I think it really changes what people see as an added value to when they travel. So it used to be the better materials you have in your room, or the bigger your room is, or the better your TV is, or whatever. Those were the important factors of how you decided where to stay, and how you measured that. And I think now where we're going is really that you see community as the added value, and that's what brings people back. And that's also how you fuel your own community, right? So we already had yesterday someone who checked in who was saying that he told his colleague who's coming in a few days to also stay with us because he liked it a lot, and they always come back to Vienna every every 3 or 4 months. So they hopefully will keep coming back, and that's how you create kind of a feeling of coming home for them as well, because they just have to travel a lot for business. That's just how it is, but it can be different, and we want to show people that business travel can be different.
Yeah, and also you make a great point, Patricia, is before it used to be, as you say, the rooms, right, the fancy rooms or whatever, and now we see the more and more that is community and also Wi-Fi, but it's community the most, right? So Anne, any thoughts?
Yes, I mean, I agree with the 3 other ladies there, but the difference between NeuSpace and the ventures they have is that we not just have a pure hotel product. So, you know, for us, it's the wider society. And when we're talking about lifestyle, and when we're talking about community, and when we're talking about, you know, the loneliness and the different generations coming together, you know, this is not just the young people who fancy being, you know, social, not at all. It's across all levels. That's what we experience. And, you know, we, as an example, you know, we look at infrastructure to exist in hotels. So the parking, as an example, the social spaces they are, and, you know, let's face it, the social spaces are not ordinarily well used in hotels all of the time. So, and, you know, if you look at statistics, and, you know, if I pick Switzerland or Germany as an example, there is a huge gap between children and childcare as an example. So what do you do if you're a professional wanting to live in the city, and just because you have kids, you don't have childcare? What do you do? So if you're bringing an older generation in, and, you know, then you kind of have this blend that you have the facilities in the house, and you can engage, and, you know, you bring the community from the outside in. It makes it a really attractive space to be. Whether you're there for a year, for 3 years, for 5 years, it doesn't matter. You know, we're not looking at the constant fluctuation, but the community is of essence wherever we go, because we're social creatures as humans. And, you know, over time we've been, I want to say, with COVID, it was a bit of a reboot, you know, because we were all running, all busy, all traveling, most of us anyways, in hospitality certainly. And now with the sense of community, it was this kind of, okay, let's pause, reflect. And this is why these sort of co-living and alternative ways of living, not being a hippie, are just being very attractive suddenly across all age groups. And that's what we see with NeuSpace. And like Virginie said, it makes sense from a return on investment perspective, from an investor, because up until, let's say, if you go back 18 months, people were like, "Ooh, it's social, it doesn't make any money." Well, actually it does. So if you do it properly, it is very interesting for everybody involved, for the operator, for the investor, for the community. It's a triple win. This is what we advocate here.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Super interesting, Anne. And now perhaps we can start with Lyuba, the following question. And how has COVID affected your business model, and what would you focus in a post-COVID world?
Yeah, well, so it's affected dramatically because we mostly had foreigners, and Russia is a really big country on itself. And it's a really big internal market too, but we focused on foreigners before the pandemic. And because of that, we were hit even more. Travelers, in Russia, people still traveled a little bit, but the borders are closed, and they are still closed. So it was basically a complete shutdown for us for first 4 months, and then we started to not to rebuild the facility, but we started to rebuild our philosophy. We started to rebuild our management. We had to rethink entirely everything about how we manage it. And it was very hard because we had to stop thinking as a hospitality product. We had to stop thinking that we have to use, for example, cleaning ladies so often. We would have to change it into the mentality that we just get a lot of volunteers and we make operations the way that we don't have to clean that much with the staff. Because it's a completely different financial model in terms of how much you hire staff members, and mostly a lot of things are done with the volunteers. So it's been a lot of change, and once we finally changed our mentality, then the season started, and we had to change it again. And it's been a lot of struggles because when you don't have a lot of guests, we have 100 beds, but as a co-living, we only had maximum 36 residents. So it wasn't so much. And the place was maintained by itself a lot, just because people stayed there long term, and they also were responsible for the space. And our staff members, the one we kept, it wasn't a lot. We had to we had to, unfortunately, fire a lot of people. But then once we had to hire them again, they were completely lost because all of a sudden we have 20 check-ins, 30 check-ins, and before we had maybe 1-2 check-in because we still had some short-term guests, but not a lot of them. And that was something so entirely different, though completely similar with how it was a year ago, but people already forgot how it was. So now it's a time where we should create the model that is so flexible that it will be easy and flexible also the way we operate, the way we manage, the way the staff works, to also embrace the high season, but at the same time take advantage of co-living in the low season. So in our future, we of course want to combine those two models and do it in the most efficient way. And now we are just on this journey of settling the operations, right?
That's good. And also I wanted to ask you, how did you cope with community, right? Now that you are becoming like kind of hybrid models, we can say.
Yeah. Well, I think, well, I can't say that we are a co-living at the moment because starting from 1st of May, we opened all of our inventory for short term, and 95% of our guests are coming for the short term. They come as a tourist. All of them are from Russia. Unfortunately, we just, even if we could, the borders are closed. So there is nothing we can do about it. But they have a different purpose of their travel. They have a mostly cultural purpose because St. Petersburg is is kind of the second capital, mostly known for the culture. So people come to visit nice places, to eat, to enjoy some local new areas of culture and entertainment. So it is not so much right now, let's say, doesn't match, this group doesn't match entirely with the co-living group. At the same time, it is also somehow, working because out of our, let's say, 50 guests at the hostel, there is usually about 10% that is really social, and the rest is maybe varies. But the ones who are social, they have an opportunity to meet other people through our events, and they also meet with our residents. And we only have 5 residences at the moment, only for the shared dorms, and it works. It works because there are always some guests that match with our co-living guests, and they occupy the same common area, and we have 3 different common areas. So
exactly. That's the beauty, right? That's the beauty of that is the beauty of the hybrid as well, right? So community mixing with people short term, and this kind of balance needs to be managed very well, and it looks like you are getting there, Lyuba. So I wish you all the best for that. And let's see Anne, because she's got quite an experience about the about that. And can you just go through the impacts of the COVID on the business model and in the future? What would be your focus, please?
I think for us, obviously, it's slightly different because, you know, Barbara and Margarita, who are my collaborative founders, we only brought it to life as NeuSpace through COVID. So, you know, we thought, let's say the first 4 or 5 months, and we were like, well, this is really different. So Margarita is an architect and Barbara is a real estate asset management, where she has her business in, and obviously mine is hospitality. So we looked at it and said, okay, there must be a clever way of combining the threats to hospitality. Certainly, you know, we're not looking at properties with necessarily in A locations, but, you know, let's say the ones which maybe at the sort of end towards their interior lifespan, because every 10, 15 years you want to refresh, and, you know, and some properties which have large banqueting spaces or near airports, which will take a longer period of time to recover, and they possibly question themselves, especially if they were owned by investment group and had a hotel portfolio. So they're not you know, it's not necessarily family-run businesses, but it's the sort of mixed portfolios investors have, where, you know, they look at their return on investment all the time and say, well, you know, when is it coming back, the business? So we wanted to give them an alternative. And at the same time, with the changes and trends we've been seeing, which are now proven to be long-term, for working from home. So how do you make urban settings attractive? You know, yes, you can live now in the middle of the countryside, and if you only have to go once a week or whatever to the office when they come all back, but how do you make that attractive? So the communal element for us was important. So now with COVID and with the projects and the clients we have, we work closely together with the different municipalities, with the different economic growth offices, as an example, and there is a real interest in it. And funnily enough, this may be also something interesting to share. It's not just hospitality businesses who are looking at alternatives of how they can maybe be coming, I don't want to say mixed use, but that sort of co-living element included in their portfolio. But it's also, we have monasteries who come to us and say, look, we have huge space, we have no people, what do we do? How can we bring the community back to us? So it's the community element is certainly what we've experienced in the center of attention, even from the investors who now start to make, we get approached quite a lot for social funds, so that they set up a portfolio which is just related to that as part of their asset management. So there is a clear shift now, and I'm sure, Virginie, how do you feel about that? I mean, can you reconfirm that, because that's certainly your field of expertise as well.
Yes, and about the asset manager, you said that are thinking about investment in co-living. That's what you said. Yes, of course, and the social impact of it, and the territorial and the environmental also impact of it. They are very interested. So during the COVID part, what would I say? It's in fact, you're right. I mean, it's more owners and asset managers that took the time to think about their investment and how they're going to manage their profitability of it. In the Co-Livers part, it was, as you know, very slow. People were, because we talk a lot with our community, during the COVID period, they were very active, talking to each other, sending messages to each other in the community, thinking, making projects, but they were not signing leads, they were not moving, and there is a strong point now, I feel it now that we are reopening on confidence. It's even more worth than before. I think now that everything is open and we can start again, I'm talking about Co-Liver part, they're just like scared, so it's not moving at the time now. It's really difficult, so we need to make people move again and try again, and so this is a weird period, I feel, for co-living, but for the offer part in this side, I think asset manager and investors and owners, and they really managed and took the time to think about how to better organize everything and understand what are the options, the very important options around co-living. So the size, the regulation, the asset. Also, we see it in France, the patrimony, how we have a lot of castles that were transformed into co-livings, and they feel more easy with this phenomenon of people wanting to live together, and it's not like hippies and everything. So I think they're confident in the fact that it's not just a question of trend, short trend, or yes. And I wanted to say a last thing, but I forgot. But yes, we are specialized in the long-term living in Kulok. And we see also the wish of people to live into co-living on a long-term vision. So it's very interesting to see that. That's what I was asking also my colleagues of panelists, how they were feeling about the short-term and long-term run around co-living. So maybe it's a good question for Patricia.
Yeah, Patricia can follow, and I think we all agree as well. It's exciting times. Is the first time that investors as well are super interested in a human factor, right? In community and the value of it, and also the balance, as you say, Virginie, with the long-term co-living, and Lyuba explained long-term and short-term and how she's maintaining this, and Soku, I think they do it as well, and they are specialized. So I give you the word, Patricia, and yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. For example, here in Vienna, we're part of so it's a U-shaped building, and we share it with Superbude, which is a German hybrid concept between a hostel and a hotel. And the owners and the developers of this entire basically neighborhood from the beginning on said that they will only look at products and concepts that have a big community focus and are very open and very motivated to draw in the local community. Otherwise you would have had no chance to even apply. And I think that's really interesting, because both the other concept and us, we could show that we actually, with how we're set up and what our goals are, it's really about the local community, right? Because for us, I mean, in terms of co-living, like the length of stay that we have, I think we're more on the shorter end compared to some of your other concepts, but a lot of residents that stay with Zoku are actually, we're their first stop in a new city. So they're relocating for a job, and their company pays for 1 or 2 months or 3 months accommodation at the beginning to have them settle in a new city, and that's where we come in. And so for us, it's really important to actually build up that community for residents to interact with other residents, but also with the staff and with the locals. So we have these 3 pillars to build our community, and so yeah, you can see that I think there's a change in mindset from developers and also city planners when they look at neighborhoods, and yeah, so it is
super. Because I'm cutting you because I think it follows for the last question. I think you can answer the first. That is hybrid hospitality the future of the industry?
I mean, I would hope so. I think we are pushing that a bit. So of course, like our model, because we have 3 business models, right? So we have hotel stay, which is 1 to 4 nights, short stay 5 to 27 nights, and 20+ nights. That's long stay for us. And this allows us to be very flexible and to really accommodate every guest's need. But of course, we would like to expand our long stay part of our residence, because that's where we want to go, and that's how our lofts and our product was designed. And I do think that there's a shift of mindset in a lot of ways. So when I talk to my corporate contacts, they all confirm that they will business travel is going to come back in a different way. I really hope that is the case, because it wasn't sustainable before. So people are going to line up meetings in a row. They're going to travel for 1 to 3 weeks and really spend time in the office and not just fly back and forth all the time. And I do think that this crisis has accelerated a lot of trends that were there before. And I think products like us within the hospitality sector were quite innovative and forward thinking, and now the societal trend has kind of caught up to it. And I hope that going forward, this is going to be more and more the case, that also residents and companies and everyone thinks a bit differently and realize that, hey, that's actually how you could live for a longer term and not just for a week.
Beautiful, Patricia. So Lyuba, what are your thoughts? And also there's a question from the public, so you can also answer. From Anthony Garret, from a legal standpoint, do you have to choose either short-term or long-term stay, hospitality versus co-living?
I think that was legally related. Yeah, so in Russia, that's not an issue. Yeah, well, I don't want to choose. And I do believe in the future of co-living and that this will be involved in the many hospitality, I wanted to say hospitality brands, but it's more like, because hospitality is also quite diverse and co-living is also really diverse. And I think there will be more of integration with one another because I believe that people would, they value the community feeling more, whether it's a community for a week or for a month or for a year, but they do value it much more, and they would pay for that actually more than in a regular hotel. And our example is exactly that. This is also why we have those guests even staying with us short term. When they meet guests who stay with us long term, they still kind of from the same batch. They share the same values, as because we translate the vision, and we also have quite high rates. So they book because they want to stay with us, not because it's cheap. And it's really important that the value is coming from the community, and the value is going to come from the community, not only from the co-livings, but also from the hotels and from the hostels. Exactly. And all the hybrid models.
Exactly, Lyuba, I can agree with you more. It's about the community, it's about how you treat and the experience of the clients that will make them return or recommend us, right? And yeah, we can follow Virginie. Would you like to go ahead? Do you believe in the future of hybrids and
in the future of
hybrid? What do you think about hybrid hospitality? Is the future of the industry? Because you don't have it. You have a different business model. Yours is long term.
Yes, we specialize in long term. I agree with what Patricia said. I think the future is to mix the thing, but there is a lot of constraints in France around short term. So it's very interesting to mix everything, but long term is very complicated. It's more complicated than short term. It's also very valuable in terms of profitability. So to guarantee the payments when you are in short-term living, like Airbnb, and you can guarantee your payment like one shot, it's okay. When you are in residential lease and you have to guarantee your revenue each month, it's more complicated. When you have to guarantee the relation and the good wealth of the place on the long term is more complicated also on the residential lease. So I think you have to be very strong on this part if you want to mix the two type of living, the two type of lease, the two type of residential. And that's what we do on Co-Live, because I think it's very interesting to break the thing and to allow people to stay longer on the in the places.
And I'm seeing Anne that she's agreeing with Virginie. Or do you have something to say?
I think it's a mix. You know, I believe that there is a hybrid. I mean, generally speaking, I feel that we have to be adaptable. As humans as well as a society in order to survive. I think that's part of that. I think co-living is a beautiful development and it's very important. I feel also it's important to have in one house a balance. So, you know, this cross-pollination of people who are there long-term and people who are short-term, they bring different agendas, they bring a different vibe. And when you kind of merge them, if you like, and bring them together, something usually amazing happens. And that makes it interesting from a dynamic, from a community dynamic, so that you always have kind of a fresh flow, as well as obviously your core community where people are being welcomed and who create the atmosphere, if you like. Never mind the pretty building and you know, all the things we put in, but what the people bring to it. I think so. in short, yes, I agree. A hybrid is a good idea. In some properties, it works better than others. And let's be fair, there will be always tourism to people who travel just for having 2 days or 1 week of nothingness and being in a hotel. Hotels will always exist. But I think there is another dimension now, which hasn't been as prominent on the market as it is now, which is there is not just self-catering or hotel. There is now a different layer of it, and it actually means you want to be part of something more real. And in retail, we see cultural shopping as part of that element also. You believe in the brands, you believe in the philosophy, in the vision, and in the community, and that's why you buy something. And that's the same with the living.
Exactly. The emotional part, and a complete connected community. So Patricia, I've got one question for you, and how from Hamish. How do you go about getting your guest tenants to enter the local community?
I actually just texted him in the private chat because I didn't think that we would get to it, but sure. So, I mean, the local community, like to get them in, you mostly do it through events, right? So, of course, we're also lucky enough to have a beautiful rooftop terrace overlooking the famous Prater. So a lot of locals come in for that, and then hopefully they stay and they come back for a lot of events. But so we try to make them aware of what we do here. So for example, we have also yoga brunch here. That have because we're very new. We're also a very small chain, so not a lot of people know us. So we need to first just bring up the awareness and then convince them through what we stand for, and also our employees play here a big role, of course, because that's just what you were saying before. We're people's people. So like we really, when we feel at home somewhere, and this is what we try to do at Zoku, and that has a lot to do with the people, then you come back. And then we also have a community manager whose sole purpose basically is to create the interaction between the different residents, but also the residents and the locals. So that person, of course, knows all the long stays, and she or he also knows the regulars, and can kind of fuel that in a way.
Exactly. The community manager, I believe, is a very, very important figure within the co-living, right?
That's why it's also so hard to find someone. It's the only position that we're still hiring.
They suffer the pain of the complaints, but also the joy of the parties and everything else. So I've got a question from Jake Johnson. Would you like to ask yourself, because it's a little bit long, and perhaps you can, Jake?
Hello,
sorry.
Yes, that'd be great, thank you. I'm just scrolling up. I'm interested in the shift in financial models between hospitality and co-living. How do you persuade your investors to choose co-living? Because we've had some clients at the moment which have said there's only a return on investment of around like 60% compared to hospitality, where they instead would commercially optimize that communal space. So how do you compare the two financial models? Thank you.
So we have short time. So if you guys, any of you wish to answer, perhaps short, or you want to connect with Jake and discuss, like sharing your LinkedIn or any of the panelists.
Well, I can share my experience, but I think it's very different, because we didn't build a co-living. We already had a space that were apparently really good for a co-living, and we were in a situation with the pandemic where it's between you are closed and you have costs while you're closed anyway, or you come up with a new idea and you cover the costs. So in our case, it wasn't so much about making it interesting for investor. It was more about surviving, and it worked. And now I see the potential there. But I can tell a little bit about what I'm doing right now, because I moved to Slovenia, and now I want to do the same project here in Slovenia. And having experience with talking to investors, and my experience in changing the hostel to the co-living, and now with this hybrid model, helps a lot, because the thing is, co-living itself, just as a pure format, it sticks not to the hospitality. It is in the side of a long-term rental. So it is definitely a better opportunity than a long-term rental or multi-family housing and all this kind of formats. So where you have a complete different yield, of course, from the hospitality side.
Obviously, the event was scheduled for about an hour, so we are 10 minutes after that. I hope you enjoy your second room. I know some of you have to go, so if that's the case, you know, please feel free. If anyone else can stay, I'm happy to stay another 10-15 minutes to pick up a few more questions and just kind of like making it a big let's say breakout room. But I want to say personally thank you very much to Anne, Patrizia, Virginie, and Lyuba. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your insight. Thank you, Virginia, for moderating, and thank you to everybody else that was here before, that they can't hear me, but they will hear me in the podcast, and then who stayed here right now. So thank you. And if you know, you know, if you know me, you know I like to ask people to unmute themselves and go for a big round of applause. And we also have our super amazing tech guy, Alex, who is going to come up with, I don't know what kind of funky sound. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the panelists, for attending, to the guests. Thank you again for your insights, very interesting. And we apologize for the question or answer, but you can always connect with Virginie, Patricia, Lyuba, or Anne, or myself, or Kate, and we will follow up. Thank you. Thanks.
And
thank you, guys.
Yes, and as mentioned, again, I'm happy to stay here a few more minutes if someone wants to still stay, ask a question. Like now it's proper like networking, so unmute yourself, talk to apart from Patrizia, who needs to go and
enjoy.
I'm
sorry, I unfortunately have to run.
On the terrace.
No,
so
I have
very much for being here.
There's a few people running around. I think I need to jump in. It was very nice meeting you all. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And if anyone is leave, please feel free. And if you want to stay, you know, chat to each other, feel free to. I know, Margaret, you had a few questions we weren't able to reply, but I don't know if you want to put them through to anyone who is here right now, and anyone wants to pick them up, feel free to.
So I think Patricia answered my question already. That was about how do you choose the people who come to stay. And then the other question asked was, how did you market it when you moved from hospitality to co-living?
Right, if anyone wants to pick up.
I made some kind of table with comparison of the hospitality model and the co-living model, and I think this is one of the most important part of it, is that you don't market it the same. Coming from the hostel, we used to be pretty relaxed with that, because once you have good reviews, then these reviews generate your new guests, because most of the guests are coming from the OTA, so it's booking.com, Airbnb, whatever else there exists, it's coming from there. So it's a big marketplace that makes all the work for you. So you share your commission with them, and they invest that in Google, in Facebook. Sometimes you see your own ad there, and then you have to go to booking.com to buy it. That's how it used to work, but it doesn't work anymore. Now, actually, booking.com represent also the long-term stay, so they're catching up really quickly. But most of our co-living residents are, of course, coming from a different resource, and mostly that's your own job right now. So they were coming because of the publications. We issued a new press release about how we changed. It was nicely picked up by the local, let's say, hipster magazines, and because of that, it was a nice push for us in the beginning. And then a lot of residents came because of our partners, and without them, it would be a big challenge for us. So they already had a huge community, and our partners are very different from us because they are co-living operators, but at the same time, talking about Smena Station, at the same time, they don't have their own property. And because of that, they have a very big community, because every time they go somewhere, they go 2 weeks, 1 month to different locations, and they set up short-term co-living there. And they promote us with their community. And because of that, we also managed to receive a lot of customers. And then, of course, it's our own website. A lot of people, they couldn't find what they were looking for, because once we were solely a co-living, they were looking for a short-term accommodation and they couldn't find it. But a lot of them, they stayed because they were actually dreaming about staying with us long-term, and they couldn't. Previously, we even had some, we had a regulation that you cannot stay with us long-term. So we actually had to check out people after 2 weeks. This was our rule, and now it's the opposite. So some of them dreamed about staying with us more than 2 weeks, and now they got this opportunity. So that's Instagram for us. Instagram a lot, but I think maybe that's a local thing, probably not so much in other countries. But basically, that's your own job. So that's important to know with the co-living.